Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Went all the way across the world for this one to talk to my good friend Wally. Well, we did it by internet, so I didn't physically go across the world, but Wally is an instructor and comp pilot down in Oz, in Bright. He's been instructing down there, kind of made it his thing back in 2010, learned how to fly in 2004, which you'll hear about in the show. But he and I know each other from a lot of comps over all the years, and he's a very accomplished comp pilot and a lot of fun. And we dug into all kinds of topics on this one: comp tactics and strategies, and instructing and learning and being a beginner and mindset and much stuff. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Something I have not done in a while is the top of the show tip, and I wanted to do it this time because there was an incident and Chelan, the very last day of nationals. They had the Matty Senior and his incredible crew out there. They did the ozone, C class or below comp the week before nationals, and Chelan can be pretty feisty, and they didn't have a single incident, so that was awesome. No reserve tosses, no accidents. And then nationals, same thing until the very last day. And I just wanted to talk about what went on there. And this is totally, I didn't see any of this. This is just from what I heard. So this isn't picking on the pilot at all. It's just something to kind of keep in mind. I think it makes for a good tip because from what I understand, the pilot launched and had a very small cravat, about 20% of the wing. And I actually heard this on the radio as we were kind of getting ready for the start up above launch. And somebody had said, just fly the glider, in other words, fly it straight. And just a reminder that on most gliders these days, you can fly straight on with a lot of the wing gone just by, careful weight shift and maybe a little bit of opposite brake. And, this is all things you learn in SIV, which is really important. But, maybe it was the stress of being a comp or whatever. Maybe it wasn't in a very good headspace, but the pilot flew away from the hill and then totally overreacted and leaned really hard, apparently, and a lot of brake on the flying side and spun it back into the hill the opposite way. So just remember, these are things that we're told when we're first learning, but you got to get away from the hill before you ever do anything. And you can fly a very partially open glider straight without a lot of stress, without a lot of work. And, again, these are things that are better learned in SIV, but in the heat of the moment, you got to remember, get away from the hill and then solve the problem. And from what I understand, this problem was solved totally incorrectly. He just totally overdid it and massively overreacted. And, the result wasn't great. He's going to have sounds like pretty full recovery, but you don't want to do that to yourself. We always, there's a lot of accidents in the sport, but we hate seeing the ones that are so easily preventable. So keep that in mind. Fly the glider, get away from the hill before you do anything. Let's get into this show with Wally. I can't say his last name. I actually asked it in the in the first bit of the show, so I'll let him answer that one. But please enjoy this really fun talk with a good buddy of mine, Wally. Cheers. Wally, this is fun. I haven't seen you in a while, man. We've all been in COVID lockdown for way too long. I think the last time I saw you was at the World Cup down there, or maybe it was at the Nordic. I can't remember which one went more recent, but
Nordic Open,
was it?
I want to say,
in Montevideo.
Macedonia.
Macedonia, yeah, that was cool. I want to get back there.
It was fun.
Yeah,
I definitely want to go back there.
Yeah, that was a fun place to race.
One day.
Yeah, it was. It kind of reminded me of Roldanillo. You got the mountains on each side and the valley, and you got to get from one side to the other. And I really enjoyed it there.
Good to, I think in any race, good to have that option and not just stay on this ridge and burn up and down this ridge like a mad person. But, okay, you can go by the ridge, you can go by the flats, you can pick and choose.
I like that
it's always
too.
Good to have a bit of choice in a task.
Yeah, I like that too. That was, the gaggles would split up and you'd be like, oh, are they doing better than us? What's happening over there? That was really quite fun.
Pick them out in the distance. And
Yeah. Hey, my first question is an easy one. How do you say your last name?
Arcidiacono.
Holy smokes. Where are you guys from? What's the origination of
my
that?
dad's Italian. Emigrated here in the early '60s with a lot of other people. Met an Australian lady, and I'm still here. It's a Sicilian name too. So
right. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's good to see you, man. You got a hat on. This is reverse. Usually it's cold here and warm there, but I guess you guys are coming out of winter.
We are. It's slowly starting to warm up, but it's nice to see the sun again. It's always the case at the end of winter. Just go outside and sit in the sun and get warm. Yeah, not today. It's raining and it's wet and it's miserable.
Do you guys fly all winter there, or is it as you just write that off?
We do. We tend to get low pressure systems tend to dominate. So in a fortnight, you'll only get 2 or 3 flyable days, but they're special in that you're flying with snow on the mountains out the back. They're bitterly cold, as you'd expect. It's more of a social affair where you arrive at launch at 10 and you swan around in the sunshine for a few hours and then take off for a half-hour thermic flight, and then the day's done and you go home at 3. So it's more social than anything else, but it's still good to do.
Yeah, feather top. Yeah. There's some good skiing in your parts too. I think not many people know that. But what do you consider yourself? A mountain pilot or a flatlands pilot? Do you get out to Deniliquin and send it with the flies, or do you tend to stay in the mountains?
Tend to stay in the mountains. Yeah. I like mountains. Yeah. Always have. Always been a mountains guy. Our mountains are not quite as mountainous as the rest of the world's mountains, but they're still our mountains. They're very fond of them. Once in a blue moon, I'll go out and have a bash in the flats. Again, it's usually more of a social thing. I'll go out with a group of buddies and we'll do a 5 or 6 day safari around the place. But no, most of the time it's in the flats, and I live so close to the main flying site around here. It's literally a kilometre away. So I live at the base, literally live 300 metres from the landing paddock. So
wicked.
When it's that close, it's hard to justify a 4-hour drive.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about your school and instructing and comps and stuff. We were just chatting. We had some problems with the audio there. I thought the last time I saw you was the World Cup, but you're right. It was at the Nordic Open, wasn't it, out in Macedonia?
Yeah. My buddy Alex and I went out for literally 4 weeks of back-to-back racing, and it's where you rocked up for the Nordics, which is our last week, and we'd done 3 weeks before that, and it was pretty intense. That was it was good fun though, but good place, Macedonia.
Yeah, that was cool.
Very fun place in my heart.
Incredibly cheap, super. I really liked the flying. It was quite similar to World of Neo. More on. It was more spicy in a good way. But it had the flats and it had the mountains that kind of ringed it on both sides, and you could the gaggle would often split. You didn't really know it was. Did we make the right move or did they make the right move? It was cool. I liked that a lot. Yeah. It was cool.
And I'm a big fan of seeing tasks with decisions. I'm a huge fan of that. I feel like a lot of the time with good task setting, there's decisions to be made and there's things to think about. With poor task setting, it's just follow the leader, and then it comes not a decision on cross country flying and racing. It's more just how fast can you push the bar and how good are you in the super gaggle of 100 people. And it is racing, but it's just I like to have to think about it. That's the fun part for sure.
What is your history of flying? Give us the 1-page resume of your how'd you get into all this, and how did you become an instructor? And is this how you're making your living these days?
Yeah, so I started to fly in 2004.
Okay.
My uncle had learnt to fly a few years before I did, and got into the sport through him, and he just made an offhanded comment one day of like, you've got a bit of time and you've got an uncle that doesn't use his glider very much, maybe you should get your license. So I did. Didn't really think much of it at the time, and it was, excuse the cliche, but it was a decision that changed my life. Not that I knew it then. Flew for a few years intermittently and probably a little dangerously to start with, in terms of without much supervision or on sites that I shouldn't have been flying with.
Were you in Bright back then?
No. So I grew up in southern Queensland, 2,000 kilometres from here, and then I moved to Victoria 6 months after I learned, and found Bright about 12 months, 18 months later.
Okay.
And my first trip to Bright was like, whoa, yeah, this place is special. So, yeah, been coming back ever since. And then 10, 12 years ago, moved here. It's now, it's not just my life, it's my livelihood as well. So, yeah, do love it.
And did you move there to fly and then you created the school, or what, did you move there with the intention of, okay, well, I'm going to make this my life?
No, so I moved here to fly. I'd been coming back for summers and flying my little tail off all summer long while I was a student. And then I arrived here to live here, and a friend of mine, another instructor, he gave me a job as a tandem bunny. So I did that for a year, and then I decided, actually, I think I want to teach people this. And I've come from a background of education, outdoor education, so understanding of managing risk was the outdoor part, and then anagogy and pedagogy and teaching kids and adults. And yeah, so it was a very natural progression to go into instruction and teaching. And yeah, that was 2010. I got my, started my apprenticeship with alpine paragliding, and yeah, slowly worked through the instructor qualifications, and yeah, and it was. I knew very early on, once I started instructing, like, yeah, this is a pretty fun. Like, yeah, I'm not making myself rich, but it's a good lifestyle, and I'm outside doing something I love. So,
you often hear that, the best way to kill your passion for something is to make it your business. Doesn't sound like it's done that to you at all. Do you find that it frays your love of just XC and just sending and being a pilot?
Yes and no, and this is something that I've had to grapple with over the last, especially for 5 years. Less so in the last 1 or 2, but there was 2 or 3 years in there where, yes, I think it didn't kill the passion, but it made me question it well and truly, and I had to come up with a few strategies to ensure that passion was, reignited, and I feel now pretty comfortable about it. I know I'm about to come into the season, and I know there's a lot of work ahead, but I'm also really excited about all the other things. I don't get that excited about going to work, but I do enjoy it. So, yeah, there's been a lot of little lessons on the way in order to maintain that enthusiasm, because it's that's, to me, that was actually really sad. It was about 3 years ago. I was like, I feel like I'm not enjoying this as much as I used to, and as I said, I've come out of that now, but. Yeah, that was a sad moment for me. Like, maybe I've overdone it, and I've seen a lot of instructors who get to that point where they don't fly themselves. They just don't go out on a solo glider. They'll go and fly a tandem because there's money involved, and they'll be on the hill, but then they just do not fly a glider for themselves ever. And I saw that and thought, I'm never going to. I need to put things in motion to make sure I keep this enthusiasm up, and yeah.
And when did you get into comps?
I did my first comp in 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, I rocked up and thought, I reckon I know what's going on here. I'm pretty good. I'll do well. And I was humbled, so humbled, as we all are in our first comp.
Yeah. As we are in our 20th comp sometimes. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. It's interesting watching the super final unfold. A couple of weeks ago, I looked at a couple of big names that are usually always at the top of the list, and then looked at some of their social media posts afterwards, and I think exactly that. You do comps long enough, you don't beat yourself up about it. Sometimes you're on game and your head's in the right place and everything's right and all the ducks line up, and sometimes you're just not. It's maybe has nothing to do with your gear or how you're flying for the week. It might just be your head. There's It's 10,000 elements to a comp, and it's so easy to get something wrong. And I think at the end of the comp, as long as you don't beat yourself up that you've destroyed everything and it's the end of the world, you just go, well, there'll be one next year or next week. Or
I mean,
just move on with it.
I in some ways I kind of cursed myself with comps because I had some really early luck. It was complete luck. I thought, saying, oh gosh, I must be really good at this, but I had a couple comps that went really well right off the bat, and then I realized, no matter what, you got to put in the time, and you got to put in the hours doing it, and all the comps. And God, I've blown so many comps, and it's just yeah. And I feel like now my approach to it's much healthier because I just don't care. I realize, and you see it with, like you said, you see with the guys that are so good, and then everybody blows it, and that's just part of it. No big deal.
And the nature of a comp too is it doesn't necessarily have to be 7 out of 7 tasks that you blow. You only need to blow 1 or 2, and all of a sudden you drop a long way down the rankings. Eh?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not forgiving.
FTV helped that a lot, but even then, it's still, it's a funny game. It's a really fun. I love it.
It's a funny game.
I do love it.
But it's a beautiful one, though, isn't it? It really is.
It's a beautiful game. And I like the, I'm going to Turkey here next week for the World Cup. And, since the X-Ups, I haven't really been that motivated to fly. And I like it because it's just there for you. You got the rides, you got the house, you're there to fly. It's just, they make it all so easy. So you don't have to decide much. You don't have to look at the weather. you just go fly. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
There's a lot to be said for that. And, I mentioned before that I live very close to a flying site, and that's convenient, yes. But when you live this close to a flying site and you have your local competition here, I always do worse than all the other comps.
It's never the local. It's never the local boy that wins.
No, you're distracted. You've got there's other things going on. You're tied up with the comp in some way, and it's when you go, you leave home, you go somewhere different. As you say, that's your focus. You're there to fly. You remove everything else from your mind, and that's what you do.
I had a really cool
inbound cat here, mate.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Hello, kitty.
Sorry.
I had a really cool flight about little over a week ago with two of my mentors, legends, Nate Scales and Matt Beechner. We call him Farmer, and they've been in the game since forever. And we had this beautiful big XC flight. It was 7 hours, and it was really cool, and it was pretty deep. And we landed, and I said, you know what, guys? It's so interesting that, we ended up taking quite a deep line at the end of the day that worked. It was good. And we had clouds that help us out. But in the beginning of the day, we took this line that we always take. And I said, if we'd been in a comp and a bunch of Europeans, a bunch of people came out here, Kriegel comes out here, he would have crushed us today. And you know why? Because we did what we always do because we know it works, but we weren't flying the terrain. We weren't flying, because to fly the terrain, you got to go way deeper, really leaving the roads here. But it's what you would do if you just came here. If you came here and you took off, you would show us how to fly this place. You know what I mean? Because this is our place. We know how to do it, but we don't really know how to do it because I think that happens a lot in comps. You go to Macedonia, you don't know anything, and somebody fresh just crushes it because they look at it with open eyes.
And they don't. Yeah, they're not predetermined. There's no, as you say, a predetermined route of we go here because that's what we do. I've seen that in the Bright Open over the years where a visiting pilot comes and does something just like, that makes total sense. Why haven't we been doing that for years? But that's just how they fly it. And we the locals that think, we know how to fly this area.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's deeper psychology going on there.
It does happen.
Yeah. You're in Oz. It's a long way from other places to go to comps. Is that typically how you do it? Like what you and Alex did, you'll kind of just go, okay, we're just going to take a month and bang out a few because otherwise it's got to get really expensive to.
Yeah, it is. That is about the only way to do it. Unfortunately, Australian people are literally in. You cannot leave the country. It's very hard to leave the country at the moment. I know Nick Naines did get out for the X-Alps, but there's all the problems with getting home. Okay. This year aside and recent years aside, that's typically what people do. We go out for, especially you go to Europe and you spend 2 months floating around, and you put as many comps as you can in that time because to go. Just to jump over the border to do a quick comp is just not financially viable. It's too far, and you do need to put a few comps in your calendar to go, and then that gets tricky too, especially if you're traveling with families and loved ones. Yeah.
What have you learned in all your comp experience that you could share in terms of results, getting there, getting better, what you've learned over the years that adds up to just having more fun?
Having more fun, yep.
Because it's all well and good, isn't it, to say, you know what, results don't matter. I know, but we all do have egos. It is more fun to do well.
For sure.
And, but like I said, like we were talking about, I don't kick my helmet anymore. When I bomb out, it's like, whatever, big deal. It's just a comp. I used to, but, now I can't honestly say I pretty much don't care, but pretty much, not totally.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'd be the same. If I did poorly in a comp, I'd be disappointed. But yeah, I don't think I'd beat myself too much up about it. What has helped in that regard? I think number one is sheer quantity. When you've only done one or two, then yes, you do care very much. When you do them for a long time and there will be another comp, then that's probably a big part of it. That there'll be another one, so you leave this one behind and you go again. The other thing for me was two things. One, not necessarily looking at a result for my satisfaction, not my satisfaction, but my confirmation that I've done all right. I remember there was a point where I was right on the verge of actually starting to figure some things out with comps, and I say that because I know I still haven't figured things out. Yes, I feel like sometimes I have, and then in 5-10 comps time, I'll realise, geez, I didn't know much back then. So anyway, I was at a comp where I was just on the verge of figuring things out, and I'd been lent a glider to fly, which was an ENB, and I was flying an ANC at the time, so it's like, oh yeah, why not? Whatever, I'll go flying. And I didn't do particularly well in the results, but I remember reflecting on that experience and seeing, actually, I was doing quite well up until this mistake on that day. And then, you looked at the next day and went, I was leading the group for all of that and then stuffed up here. And then I guess I took the positives out of it, definitely found the negatives and went, this is where I stuffed up and this is why I stuffed up. This is the decision I made for sure. But looked at all the positives and went, I was doing a lot of good things here. And I guess I just told myself, be patient. You're doing a lot of good things. If you can get rid of a couple of bad things, then all of a sudden, you'll have a little bit more success with that. The other lesson that was very big in my mind with comps was when I think I've stuffed up and I've got left behind, I've dropped a gaggle or two. I don't know when it was, but that understanding, that knowledge of it's actually pretty easy to catch up. So I remember originally it was like, oh, I've made a mistake and I got left behind, and the group is so far in front that I'm never going to catch them. And then somewhere in there, I could actually make a couple of good decisions and be like, oh, I'm rolling into goal with everybody else.
Yeah.
What happened? So that realisation that when you think you're a long way behind, you're very often not. It really is only a couple of minutes. And if that next group gets stuck for a couple of minutes, you've caught them up, and it was just a realisation that sometimes you're not as far back as you think you are.
Do you have any kind of, headspace you try to get in, or any kind of mantras when you're flying, or any kind of, okay, you have a good comp and you go, okay, how do I repeat that? How do I take that to the next one? Is there any kind of, I don't know, seance you do it? Yeah. You roll the dice.
There's a few things for me that work well. First thing is I need to have all my personal affairs in order before I start. Turn the business phone off, or I give it to Clara, my partner, and she deals with it for the duration of the competition. Make sure all my, I don't have any bills to pay or anything like that. There's no life worries as I go into the comp. I usually spend a few hours, an afternoon in the days leading up, just relaxing and focusing on me to get myself calm. And I mentioned this before we started recording, that going from instruction to competition is a tricky thing, and that's why I take that time to give myself time just to get myself into flying headspace. And then on task days, I've got a very simple mantra that I run through my head, and that is start well, no original thoughts, and make goal. And I know that sounds simple. Start well, like if you're in the start group, and again, you don't have to be the highest person right at the edge. Even if you're in the group, you've started your day well with everybody. If you're starting low, behind, all of a sudden you've got to catch up from the beginning. The no original thoughts actually came from there's a group of us that came from Gareth Carter and Kari Ellis, mostly those two. And this was, we're racing as a group. You don't need to, from the first glide of the day, go out and win the day from the first glide. Play the game for 80% of the race, and then the last 20% you make your move. So no original ideas. Original ideas, discard them. Was pretty much that. You've got this great idea, 10% into the task, that you're just going to run down that ridge and smoke everybody. No, stop. Check your thinking there for a second. So just putting on a handbrake in your mind, not to fly slow, but just to recheck your original ideas of, this is going to be amazing, but no, just think about that. And then the make goal, then that's the classic one. Everyone knows that one, but sometimes you need to dig deep. So
I think that one's one that I lost the plot on for a while. And you just get in this racing headset and push and make a move. And remember, you make a move and land before ESS, your points suck. You got to get the goal.
They do.
You just got to get the goal. You got to make that work. And you see it. I see this with the consistency thing. The really consistent pilots. Luke just won 3 tasks at the super final, so I guess this doesn't always work. But you don't have to win tasks to win the comp.
No, you don't. No, that's actually one of my mantras. Is come second.
Yeah.
And I mean that, like, if I'm trying to win tasks, which I don't do very often, I'm not a task winner. Occasionally I pull one off, but my attitude of come second is, if you're trying to win tasks, then maybe you might be pushing it to take too many risks. So my mantra of come second, I hope I don't come second. I hope I win it, for sure. But my mantra of come second is take enough of a risk to be consistent. Well, no, I'll rephrase that. Take enough of a risk to do well, but don't be too conservative that you're going to come 15th every day. So, come second. That's what I aim for. And usually the person that comes first is different.
Yes.
Usually.
Right. Do you pay attention to who's who? Do you let who you're with in the gaggle influence you over maybe somebody else, or is everyone they're all just gliders giving you information?
No, I do take a very keen notice on who's who. And I've actually got a pretty good memory on remembering who's who as well. Part of that is not, I guess, towards the end of a competition, then who's who in terms of where I need to place for the day. That's important. But that to me is the last task of the competition. I need to be in front of this person. Therefore, I'll take a bit more risk, for example. The who's who for most of the flying is more of a, what's this person like? Is this someone that I want to go out with just the two of us? Is this person going to help me? Is this person someone that is just a bit too impetuous and goes too hard and very often puts himself on the ground? Is this someone that I can utilise their psychology, the way they race, the way they think against them? If I push a little harder now, I'm going to watch this person push themselves very, very hard to be in front of me, and now they're going to be down there in front of me helping me out. So I use them a little bit that way, and I'm still learning that, but I do take notice of who's who. Yes and no. If I don't know them, just a glider in the sky. But if I do know them and I especially know their personality, then yes, I'll most certainly take notice of who that person is, so I can utilise their mindset for my advantage. Sounds funny.
What's the best tip you've ever gotten from the Aussie squad? I know you guys have the kind of team thing, or Kari or Alex or anybody that you've raced with. Can you think of a tip that's really been kind of a, whoa, that helped?
The best, I guess, bit of advice that I got given was from Guy Anderson. I was having a chat to him, one Brit Open. Actually, 2 pearls of gem from him. pearls of wisdom, I should say. The first one was just that old saying of a memory of a goldfish and letting go of what has just happened. We all make bad mistakes and bad decisions while we're racing, and it's too easy. And I remember this early on for me. It was you'd make that bad decision, and then the rest of the day I'd be in this negative headspace where then you'd make a bad decision, and then you'd throw a Hail Mary to try and make it up, and then you'd throw another Hail Mary and another one, and all of a sudden you'd find yourself on the ground. So here's and it was more than just that sentence, but we had a good chat about it of, just learn to let that go and move on. And yeah, easier said than done, especially when our emotions involved with it. But so that was a big part of it. Just learning to go, yep, I stuffed up. I acknowledge that. This is the emotion that I'm feeling that is associated with that. Let it go. What's my next job? And another person that was helpful in that was Adele Honti. I met her in Macedonia as well. And her very simple saying of one thing at a time. And I guess they go hand in hand. So we've stuffed up. We've made a mistake. We figured out what it was. We've let our emotions go on that particular thing, and then going to, with Adele's thinking, what next? What do I need to do now? I need to get high. I need to catch up with the group. That's all I need to worry about. I don't need to worry about the rest of the race. I just do that one thing, and then once I've done that one thing, then I move on to the next one thing. It's a lot easier to compartmentalise than a whole race in one.
Yeah, I've said this before on the show, but I read a ton of sport psychology books going into this X-Alps, just trying to work on the whole mental game more than in the past. And that you see the same things in these books over and over and over again. And one of those is very much, you're going to make mistakes. You got to take the mistake and throw it in the trash. Like you said, learn from it and get rid of it. You think about the best athletes in the world in baseball and basketball, and they miss all the time. If they got hung up on that, they would just go to hell. I mean, if you're a 300 batting, if you got a 300 batting average, which means you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're world class.
It doesn't sound that good though, does it?
It doesn't sound that good. No, it doesn't. But yeah, I think we should all follow more of Adele's advice. She's really good at all that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that is a big one, because the best bomb out. And
it's not an easy thing to teach oneself either.
No, it's not.
It really isn't.
It takes a lifetime.
Still working on it, Leon, I guess. Still working on it.
Yes, yeah, and we always will be, for sure. What's your favorite place to go fly? If you could leave, I know COVID's been really tough in Oz to go out and do, but if you could go anywhere right now and go to a comp or just go fly XC, where would you go?
Probably the place that I like racing the most, and partly because I know I'm no good at it there. Slovenia. Just had a mind blank. Tolmin in Slovenia.
Yeah.
The first time I raced there and flew there, I fell in love with it, and it's just a magical valley. So much happens, and so much happens fast there. And I remember the first time I went there, I was doing a serial cup a long time ago, and I thought the normal thing you did was you fly along and you take a thermal and you glide to the next one. Didn't realise till much later, like, no, people don't stop.
No, you don't stop.
Hammer and tongs.
You don't stop in Slovenia. You just punch bar and keep going.
But that just a beautiful playground. Saint Andre Les Alpes is a bit similar in that it's it's small and it's compact. Everything's you're not trying to go hundreds and hundreds of kilometres or miles. You just everything's small and compact. It's arena racing, and those places to me I really enjoy, because you can explore, you can play, even if you're not racing there. It's just today is the day that we're going to fly the back ridge, so we go and fly the back ridge. Yeah, good fun. So Slovenia, I think, and I like Slovenian people.
Yeah, again, it's so beautiful. The Soka River is just, man, every time you fly over it, you're just going, did I take some drugs today or what happened? It's so beautiful. It's a neat country.
It's more vivid than it usually is, isn't it?
Yes, it's just amazing. Yeah, I haven't raced there. I've flown there a bit, but I haven't raced there. I'd love to. I think that'd be really cool.
The Slovenians are, so yeah, obviously the Slovenians, for a very small nation, they do pretty well on the world stage of paragliding. They're always, their nation's somewhere in the top 10 of that, I'm certain. And,
yep, always.
I think Tolmin's one of the reasons for that, and then just down the road, and this is one of the reasons it's such a good place for competitions, is Liak. And Liak, with their funny little accent, they say, "Oh, it's a very special place," and it really is. The rest of the Alps is in torrential rain, and there's a task happening at Liak, and so to go and spend a week somewhere and go racing with a group of buddies, I'd say, yeah, take me there any day.
Mm-hmm. You've made this your lifestyle, living your livelihood. Does free flight, does it make your life better or worse when it comes to relationship, other things? I know, Mark Watts, when I had him on the show, I said, what would you do differently if you could rewind the clock? And I give up fucking paragliding. Yeah, he was very adamant. Really? Yeah, he was adamant that's what he would have done differently. But if you're any kind of scale in between those two extremes,
I don't think I could picture my life without it. It's such a big part of my identity. No, I couldn't live without it. Sorry, Gav. and to be honest, that worries me sometimes because I've seen a few incidents and accidents, and I've had friends that are, not doing so well because of incident accidents. And it does worry me. What would it take for me to stop this sport? And that's a worrying thought. It's probably the thing that keeps me safe a lot of the time as well. A healthy step back from the edge of unnecessary risk, but couldn't imagine life without it. My wife very often says, if I'm getting a bit grumpy, it's like, rightio, get your gear, get in the car, going up the hill. You need to go and get your feet off the ground. Yes, dear. Thank you, dear.
Is she a pilot too?
She's right. She's dead right. No, she used to be a pilot, but same, had an accident.
Oh.
Yeah, got lifelong body issues with that, feet and back, and so it's close to home. It's always there.
Yeah.
But she's a lovely woman, and she's super understanding, and she knows that flying's pretty important to me, and she supports that. And sometimes she's a bit saddened that she doesn't fly anymore, but it's also there's other things in life. There really are. So,
this is an impossible question. I hate this question, but we're kind of on this theme. Why, you kind of answered a little bit there, but I'm gonna make you think even harder about it. Why do you fly? Could you put it in? Can you articulate that?
I guess it's changed over the years. Now, yes, it is a little bit part of my identity. Wally, the guy that flies. A lot of people are like, oh, you're the guy that flies. Yeah, that's not the reason I fly. That's sort of probably what everyone else thinks. Right. I think when I was new, it was that unbridled freedom. Like I can go anywhere. Now I think the thing that I love the most is the learning process and the journey. I remember when I was 200 hours, I thought, geez, I do this pretty well. And then when I got to 500, I went, holy crap, I knew nothing back then.
Right.
And then when I got to 1,000, I went, whoa, I knew nothing back then. So,
yes.
And I think I'm in love with that the ever changing nature of it all, and just moving on with that. And I guess, I don't identify myself as solely an instructor. Yes, I am an instructor, and that is my job. But to then nurture that and see that in others, that's actually pretty nice for me as well.
Let's switch over to instructing. Do you follow a particular system, like APPI or that kind of thing, or is Australia? How does it work in Australia?
So in Australia we operate all our endorsements and training under Sports Aviation Federation of Australia, SAFA. All the qualifications go through them, so we send the paperwork off and they process it. Looking at the requirements, I'd say especially the license course, the license qualification, called a PG2. I would say that is absolute bare minimum for somebody to get safely into the sport. And not that we say this directly to our clients, but it really is, you now have enough knowledge to go out and hopefully not hurt yourself. That's what we're after. And that first 100 hours, 200 hours, that's just super critical. You don't know what you don't know when you're new, and so many people either leave the sport really early because they don't have the support around them and don't have a bit of understanding, or they scare themselves because they've flown doing something they didn't even know was an issue until the thing came up. But so everything runs under SAFA, and the way you run a course with a school is subjective to that individual. We do the requirements plus some other things that we think are important and necessary. It's really hard to tell what other schools are doing. I've gone and worked with a few different schools, and I think that's, as an instructor, that's really important to go and work with another school, because they'll give you ideas of things that, an analogy to explain pitch control, whatever. That can be really important. And also things that you go, I don't actually like the way they do that. Good to know. So, any instructor should be critically reflective enough to look at their own processes and adapt and change them based on what other people are doing and the best practice at the time. There's still a lot of instructors that started teaching 30 years ago and haven't changed much in 30 years. And that's a worry. That's a huge worry. The sport's changed a lot. Why are we still teaching, something that's that old? I think being up to date and with your finger on the pulse of the sport, and especially the equipment, is pretty damn important.
What you kind of talked about it there a little bit, but what makes a good instructor? What kind of personality, what kind of person is built for it?
I think if we all reflect on our schooling and think about the teachers that were the good teachers, I think there's a common theme, and that is that they care. I know that sounds very simple, but an instructor that cares both for the safety and for the understanding of a student is going to, develop a good relationship with that student, and then that student's more likely to respond to instruction and those sorts of things. And the whole learning process is going to be better. So an instructor that cares, so that's not driven by financial means and is not burnt out. And I think that's an important thing. I don't think one can be an instructor for 40 years without getting to somewhere in there and going, I've just had enough of this. And, it's just another Groundhog Day of the same over and over again. So, I think having different elements within the instruction, so you're doing some tandems, you're doing some coaching, you're doing some, training of new students. Doing a lot is quite important because you're keeping yourself fresh and you're thinking about it. Doing the same thing over and over and over and over again is, one, you're going to get complacent, and two, you're not everyone has a lack of compassion, but if you're doing the same thing over and over again, then you've done it 55 times. The student's done it once. They're going to pick up that this person's really not into this, and that's going to translate as not good instruction coming across because it doesn't seem personal and doesn't the individual feels like they're not cared for. Hope that answers your question a little bit. Yeah,
totally. In all these years of instructing, 11 I think now, you get all these beginners through, and you said, this is something I've grappled with a lot when I think about new people getting in. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know at 500 hours. You don't know at 1,000. There's all these stages we go through where I'm constantly going, good God, I'm stupid. I can't believe I didn't know that. I'm constantly learning. But what should specifically beginners avoid? what are some of the things that if you could just pack up all that knowledge you've got in your head all these years and put it in somebody? I realize that's too many things, but if there's a
Mm.
couple just big ones that you see beginners make that they should just steer clear from.
Yeah, yeah. I guess going at it alone is by far the biggest one, and I say that from experience. I went at it alone to start with, and that was just so the wrong way to go about it. It really was. So not going at it alone, using the collective knowledge of the community to aid you in your progression. This is where it gets tricky. This is where it gets tricky, though, because you can say go and talk to an experienced pilot, but a lot of pilots want to just explain things for the sake of explaining things. So what I'd say is do your research, go and find the pilots that actually are experienced and will give you good advice for your level, and then go and talk to them, opposed to just go and talk to someone that has a qualification that looks like it's fancy.
But how would a beginner know who that person is?
Here within lies the issue, really. That's a really hard question, and I do see that. I'm a little critical when I see someone who I don't think is in Australia we have safety officers who do exactly that. When a club assigns someone as a safety officer, and I think, whoa, that person is a safety officer. That's bad news, because being a good pilot, and I use my inverted commas to my fingers there, being a good pilot doesn't necessarily means you fly well, great, but it doesn't necessarily mean you understand conditions and the emotions that a new pilot's going through. So understand conditions for a new pilot. So I've seen a lot of good pilots say, "Oh, you'll be totally fine. It's great conditions. It's great conditions for them, but it's not for a new pilot." So it's it's a hard question to answer, because how does a new pilot find that correct person? And really hard. And with a lot of good intentions from more experienced pilots, sometimes those good intentions go wayward because they just haven't thought about it for someone who's at that point in their flying career. They've just finished their course. They're not going to deal with strong ass thermals in the middle of the day. But I don't think I've quite answered your question there, but it's a tough one. It's a really hard one, and I think this is probably if a nation has a certain way of dealing with this, then I'd really like to find that out, because the recipe in a lot of the world, I feel, is people get their license, and then the first 50, 100 hours, they're blundering around the dark trying to figure things out and trying to figure out who to listen to, and getting conflicting bits of information from two experienced pilots, and then trying to figure that out. And so, the result is they either leave the sport because they don't know what's going on, or they have a scare or an accident. Sorry. So it's a tough one. It's a really tough one.
It was actually in Macedonia. We had dinner one night with the Swedes, and there was a whole bunch of them there because it was the Nordic Cup, of course. And they were telling me that their method is it's really club based. So if you come up through the club and you get to a certain level and you get pretty good, then the club basically pays you to go on a trip to Annecy, or somewhere that's pretty close, but kind of a flying vacation for a week, and you're kind of the de facto instructor. So you get to go. You're getting this free trip, so you're vested in kind of working because you're getting this great trip to Annecy, but you're there to mentor, not necessarily instruct. They're kind of different. The students, the new people in the club, and so it's this rolling thing that you roll through, and it's expected of you. If you come up through the club, then you're expected to, because it is different. Like you said, there's a point where, okay, I can't be your instructor anymore. You're not paying me anymore, and I have to instruct. But we need mentors, don't we? And one of the questions I get all the time is, well, how do you find mentors? If you're not kind of an extrovert and out there, in the community and making it happen, it can be hard to get
How do you find them?
mentors.
Yeah, yeah. I think that sounds like it's a cultural thing within their organisation. It's expected from when you start that you are going to, once you've got to a certain level, you will mentor other pilots. And I think that's, as long as that culture is instilled, and it'd take many years. Let's say if Australia adopted that, it would take a number of years to get that.
Wally, Will Gadd talks about, you know, the flow process, both Adele Hante's, Chick Sent Me High's flow, and also flow sports. So kayaking and mountain bike riding and, any kind of thing where there's, not climbing, flow sport. So paragliding is very much a flow sport. Are there, I imagine you being in the mountains there in Bright, you partake in other things other than flying. Do you have any other sports that you feel like have really contributed to your learning this sport? And because Will always talks about, when he has friends that come from climbing, because he's such a climber, that get into it, he's always quite a bit more worried about them as opposed to a kayaker or a surfer, because they deal with energy in different ways.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I guess you're talking about you're working with an environment.
Yeah,
so
gravity
in our game,
in a way. Yeah, and and just whereas climbing's just moves and technical and strength, and ours is really using the energy of the universe to power us along.
Yeah, yep. I do get into lots of different things actually in the mountains. It's a beautiful thing about Brighton. This area is it's quite a playground. Things like mountain biking, and I've got a good buddy who used to race mountain bikes quite seriously and flies paragliders at a very high level as well. And he has said that too, that when he goes out on the trails for a mountain bike ride, he's actually doing a bit of flow training in that he tries to make everything as smooth as possible, and he relates that to especially gliding, the gliding part of our game. Thermaling's a little bit different because we're adjusting as we go. But the gliding and the getting the flow and staying on the lifty line. So he when he goes for a ride, he feels it's a training exercise for feeling that flow and going along. Remember Mads Syndergaard saying as well that we as pilots, we do our best flying when we're not thinking about it too much. And I know when people are brand new, it's probably part of the reason they can only fly for a couple of hours at a time is because they are rationally thinking about absolutely everything. And after some time, when you don't need to think about, your pitching of your wing, you just do it automatically, and it's that comes autonomous in your mind, and all of a sudden you're not thinking about all the minor things. You're using your subconscious, your brain's just functioning, and you're going with the flow. I'm pretty sure that's the reason Felipe called his company Flow Gliders, because exactly that beautiful feeling you get when you feel like you're in timing with the natural environment, be it a water down a river or the clouds in the sky. It's not something that comes quickly, and I think that comes once you have a good body of skills and knowledge, and especially flying your aircraft as well. So the skills part, and then you turn your mind off a little bit and just do the subconscious thing. And sure, sometimes you do need to bring yourself into the present and be rational about what's going on. But that's probably easier said than done. And we as humans probably consciously put ourselves in the conscious arena because that's what we feel we're in control of. But I do think that's wise advice from Will to learn to flow with what you're feeling and going along around you.
Do you not to take us to a dark place at all, but you as all of us have, if we've been in the sport for a long time, you mentioned Alex and your gal, and some bad accidents that you've witnessed, seen, been a part of. how do you approach risk at this point in your career? How do you grapple with, that never ending gravity?
Yep. Um, yeah, it's a tough one. It's tough because it is still a risk sport. Anyone that says that it's not a risk sport is not being truthful. Yeah, it's over. I guess now I have taken a big step back from the edge of risk. I didn't ever think I was standing right on the edge of the precipice there, but I know now that I don't need to take a big risk in order to fly big lines or do flights that I'm really quite proud of. I don't feel like I need to take those risks. I feel like you've got to wait for the conditions to do it, so you can't force it. And I guess that's probably it. You're not forcing it. You're not just sort of, no, I'm going to do this flight because today's my only day off, so I'm going to do it. No, you're just like, well, no, it's not going to happen today. Clouds aren't high enough. Wind's in the wrong direction. Too gusty. Whatever. Not going to do it today. So stepping back from the edge, I don't think that's easy when people are new because they're keen, they're really eager, they've got almost something to prove of like, I want to feel like I'm good at this sport, therefore I need to get in the air as much as possible, and I'm going to take this risk, and it's a terrible thing, but you fly for long enough, you do see incidents and accidents, and it's a terrible thing because it saddens everyone, even if it's just a bad landing and a sprained ankle, and that's a great outcome on it. I mean, in the nicest way possible. You never want to see people get hurt, and sometimes that's really, especially going back to instruction and mentoring, that's really hard to portray to somebody who's new that just chill out. Like, you don't need to be flying in these conditions. It's beyond your pay grade, and there's going to be another day that is flyable in the future. I'll guarantee you that. The mountains will still be here. Just relax. And I think everyone does come to that conclusion eventually, but no one wants to see incidents and accidents, and unfortunately it does happen, and especially when you think that was totally unavoidable. That's really disheartening, and it hurts my soul to see people do silly stuff purely on I need to prove myself, or I need to fly in these conditions because this is my only day off this week, and those sorts of things. And
trying to make, what is Will? He has a saying for this: trying to make the day fit your
desires.
Your desires, instead of the other way around. It's if it's not what you think it is, just go swimming.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Something safer.
Yeah, you're going to be fine if you just go swimming. Well, let's end this on some kind of fun ones here. Best and worst wing you've ever
Best
flown.
and worst wing. Best wing. Look, I'm flying the X1 at the moment, and it is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it is a beautiful wing. I've been flying. I've only ever flown, well, as my own gliders, Gin and Nibiuk, really. I flew the boom for a couple of years there, and although I did like it, as soon as I went from the boom to the Leopard, then to the X1 was just like, oh, this is such good performance, but without the workload. So that was really nice. I guess the wing that, as I was going through my progression, that I absolutely fell in love with was the Arctic 2.
I flew the Arctic 2. Yeah,
strung a chord with me at the time. I loved it. I've still got it in the shed there. I just can't get rid of it.
Really? Yeah.
Worst wing? Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah, look, I'd say the worst wing is not something that I've flown a lot, but it's probably. I don't know if you want to publish this, Gav. I really
we don't
dislike.
Have any sponsors. It's good.
Yeah, good. I really dislike Nova wings. Yeah, and not that they're bad wings. I just find them very lifeless. I find them very boring. And Just, I like a glider that has a bit of pitch and roll and tells me something. And I find Nova wings, as I said, not that I've flown them in great quantities. Every time I fly one, I'm just like, that's pretty boring. So in saying that, I'm sure there is a market for people that just want a really quiet, boring wing. So, it's a subjective answer. So, I'm not poo-pooing Nova. It just doesn't work for me. So
sure, it's a subjective question, actually. I mean, one person's porridge is another. We all love and hate different things. I mean, there's been some Nivik wings along the way that that other people couldn't stand, and I
didn't
loved.
like.
It's really interesting.
It's funny, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super funny. What's your favorite piece of equipment? This could be anything. Your goggles, but could even be something you don't even fly with, I guess. But what's your favorite? The thing that you just this makes my flying so much better.
I think I've got to just say a Flymaster.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
See, there you go. I hate the Flymaster. I've never been able to. Yeah, we have to use them for the X Alps, and they do a good job with live tracking and stuff. But yeah, I don't. I've never liked that device. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, okay. I like it because it's reliable. Like, I've had my Flymaster for 10 years. I had one of the navs, the first navs that came out after the B1 versions, and it's my go-to. I know the sound. I know how it works. It's reliable as anything. Had it for 12 years. Still works.
That's like my Flytech 6030. I just can't give it up.
That's
ancient. I know. I love it. I still love it. But and everybody that uses Flymaster loves them. It's never worked for me.
Yeah.
I think it's a great device. It's a great instrument.
The other thing I've been reading recently on forums is the XC Tracer, and people love the XC Tracer. To me, the XC Tracer. No, I'm the opposite.
Really?
I cannot get in sync with its. I'm about happy with it now, and I've dampened it on a scale of 0 to 10. I've dampened it to 8 to make it how I want it. Yeah, I know.
Really? That's a lot of dampening.
Yeah. So
I should send you my tone settings.
Please do.
You've probably heard about this, but I send my tone settings they weren't mine. It was another, and I don't remember who it was. It was a World Cup pilot, because I was having the same trouble when I took it out of the box. I just thought, whoa. What are you doing to me? And I couldn't core for the life. I just couldn't find a core. I was so used to a more averager, and I couldn't make it work. And there are people like, I had Alex Roby on the show, and he uses both. He'll use a Flymaster and the XC Tracer without it dampened, and he can kind of tune his ear, I guess, to both. But that doesn't sound that simple to me. I like things simple. Yeah. So, but this, I have tone settings for the XC Tracer that I've given out to, at this point, hundreds of people, and it's really nice. They were actually built to kind of match. It's actually built to match the Flytech 6030, but that's the same as the Flymaster.
Yeah, okay. I'd be very interested in that.
But it's not that much dampening. I have mine at 2.5. But it's but I think it's more of that in combination with the other tone settings. I think they'll find it pretty good. I think
it's a whole package. It needs to go together. Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to try it and test it. That's good.
I'll send them to you, buddy.
Thanks, mate.
Wally, it's great to converse with you and have a chat. It's been too long. I hope it's not going to be that much longer. I've got a couple clients down there in Oz, and they're talking about, I don't think we're ever going to get out of here till 2023. I hope it lightens up for you guys and you get to travel. I hope we all get to travel again and start racing.
It's a very closed door down here at the moment, and
it's been really
I know the cats that usually go racing overseas every year, every couple of years. We are itching. We are seriously itching.
I am sure you are.
What do you do?
Yeah. Has your local comp scene been pretty good? Has that been okay, or has that been kind of hit and miss too?
Look again. So yes and no. So last year we had to downgrade one from a nationals to essentially a state level, and that lost a few people because of that. But in the trend over the last 3 to 4 years is people want to race and people want to get out there and do that. And, which is good for, I feel like a lot of people in Australia have an anti-competition sentiment. So, but, in recent years, I think that's being ignored a bit, and people want to get out there and try something different and go racing. And there's a lot of new pilots coming onto our racing scene, which is good. We don't want to look like Dad's army. A lot of old blokes kicking around.
Right.
Yeah. You know Dad's army, don't you?
Yep. I'm one of them.
They're not my words, Gab. They're not my words.
Well, I'm psyched to race with you again at some point here. I'm sure it'll happen. And
let's
happy to follow the squad down there and learn from you guys. And thanks for sharing all this, man. I appreciate it.
No worries. Pleasure, Cobb. Thanks for having me on. I feel blessed. I feel like there's a lot of big names that I've been listening to, a lot of podcasts over a long time, and I feel very humbled that, hey, Gav asked me to be on it. It's quite nice. Thanks, mate.
Good excuse to reach out. And you've got a really keen community down there. We've got a ton of listeners in Australia. And so
I've heard that.
They'll be really psyched to hear your voice. Well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
No worries, Cobb. No worries. Play up.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription. And it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.